Hi, everybody. Thanks for this short introduction. My name is Lukas, and today I want to present some joint work we did together with Knut here, with Ralf Jennig, and my supervisor, Uli Römer. And I'll talk about stochastic brittle fracture. So we actually basically just use a phase field model, which is programmed in Ferrite, and do some stochastics on it. And the interesting part is now that we connect it with data in order to reduce uncertainty. Okay, maybe a little motivation on why this might be important. So imagine you're an engineer who's responsible for assessing whether this crack in this old bridge is dangerous or not. So you might want to find out, okay, in which way is this crack propagating? What are the implications of this? It's a tough job, and you have basically two means of getting information on that. First is like visual inspection. You maybe look at it, take some photos, or you put sensors which measure displacement. This is kind of a noisy process, right? And if you put sensors, you might put them on discrete locations throughout your domain. So you get some somewhat accurate information, but also this is rather sparse. And another method is obviously to use an FE model to model this bridge pillar and see how this crack might propagate in time. That's also a highly random process because this bridge is very old and you do not know the material properties of it exactly. Most of the time, we just assume a certain Young's modulus, for example, for the whole domain, but obviously that's wrong because this material deteriorates over time, stochastically, if you will. So what you should do is put a random field as a material parameter, propagate through your model, and you end up with a stochastic model output and stochastic crack path. So I believe it's important to know the uncertainty of your data generation, that is your sensors, but also the uncertainty of your model. So you want to know how bad your model actually is before you make important decisions. So we picked the phase field method to model cracks and structures, and we show some very simple academic examples here. And let's look at how uncertainty affects such a phase field model. And here I stole a picture from my supervisor where they have a 2D disk that they rip apart. There's a hole in the bottom, and you can see 1,000 crack paths superimposed. And most of the cracks go through that hole. Yeah, that makes sense. But some, depending on uncertain parameters, also don't go through the hole. You can see it on the beamer, but some also go like that. And some leave the hole to the left, and some leave the hole on the bottom. So this is all a result of multiple sources of uncertainty, right? Your material parameters could be uncertain as a random field, for example. You have uncertainty in initial and boundary conditions. For the bridge example, for example, you do not know how many cars pass over the bridge or how heavy they are. It's a random process. Also, the model can be uncertain itself and numerics, obviously, but all this in the end leads to a stochastic phase field model. Our idea here is now, okay, we want to reduce this uncertainty to some extent, and we do this by collecting data, explicit measurement data from sensors. We measure the displacements, for example, of your structure. And what we do is an update of the stochastic phase field solution with the data. And obviously for that, you at first need the stochastic prior, as we call it. You can do this through sampling. This just means you Monte Carlo sample your entire field with initial damage, propagate this randomness through your model, and end up with this stochastic prior. Then your measurement data comes in. It's also noisy. Here I just use some artificial measurement data, so I just ran drop them for a single parameter and added some noise at some sensor locations, and then you perform the update. And in this case, it's a Bayesian update, so you come from a Bayesian prior, you add some noisy data, and what you do is basically a transformation of probabilities. You shift this prior probability distribution towards the data, and you end up with a posterior probability distribution for your fields. Then you can just go ahead and proceed in time. So I'll quickly show you the equations for phase field fracture if you don't know this. And then we see some examples on this Kalman filter approach we came up with, and yeah, examples. So we use the so-called hypermorphic phase field model. It's just a flavor of phase field modeling. But important is it's based on linear elasticity. So in this energy function rule, you can see traction, integral, energy densities, and so on. Important is that we have some other coupling terms here that couple with this case, the first integral. And the thing is now, your structure deforms, and at some point, a certain value is exceeded. It's the fracture toughness G, and when this value is exceeded, the crack grows. And this means just here phase field grows. The phase field is just a function between 0 and 1. Where it's 0, there is no damage. Where it's 1, there is damage. And at its damage locations, the stiffness of your problem will be graded, and with stiffness at 0, there is like a crack growing in your domain. So just remember, we have this displacement vector u, phase field p, and some proxy variable d. This is not so important. Yeah, you just minimize this energy functional for each of these quantities, and you come up, we end up with the order of the Prandtl equations. And these we just put up straight into Ferrite, as we learned a couple of talks ago. This was rather easy. And we employ a monolithic solution strategy, so we solve all this variable together. So I told you we have some random input parameters. In this case, let's look at input or at random initial phase fields. So we have some initial damage that is randomly located throughout the domain. This might be the bridge example, some cracks which are throughout the domain and don't know where they actually are. So we do 1,000 of these random samples for the input, solve the phase fields problem with Ferrite 1,000 times, and we end up with random fields. So it's a random field for the displacement and a random field for the phase field. And it's these random fields are basically encoded in this huge amount of samples you generated. So basically that's Monte Carlo ensemble of that. What you can do if you plug all your displacements and phase fields to one big vector A, you can compute under a Gaussian approximation the mean and the covariance. Now the interesting thing is that the relationship between these two vectors is now encoded in this covariance matrix. This means as soon as we can collect data of U of the displacement, which we can collect by putting sensors in our domain, for example, we can make inference on phase fields. So we can find out where cracks are given measured displacements throughout some domain, which is quite cool. And now comes the interesting part: how do we actually connect the stochastic model with our data? And in the past, actually past decades already, people have been doing so-called Bayesian inversion for parameter estimation. This just means you find a certain input parameter, which, when you propagate it through your model, leads to a solution which creates with the data the best. That's like the classical approach for that. We chose a different method. It's called statistical FEM. And there we treat the high-dimensional dot vector A, in this case, as our parameters. And we directly optimize for the optimal set of dots in the end, given the data. So we find a posterior field for the displacements, but also for the phase field, just by including data. And as I told you, the interesting thing here is we can find the new phase field, the posterior phase field, just by measuring displacements. So we're making inference on one quantity by measuring the other. And that's possible because both of these quantities are correlated, right? So if you have a huge displacement, this might go hand in hand with a crack that is a phase field of 1. Okay, just a very short slide on this long equation here, which is basically the only thing we do for the Kalman filter Bayesian. Right? So let's say, Ensemble Kalman Filter. You take each of these random samples for a state vector, might be 1,000 ones of those, You want to find a representation of the state vector given data wise. So you end up putting prior first and add the so-called Kalman gain. It's a lengthy formula, but it's just linear algebra and quite easy to implement. But the only thing that was really hard for me was implementing this matrix H. What does it do? H projects your state vector to the space of your sensors. So you only have a couple of sensors throughout your domain. And what you do in this simpler case, just HA, you pick the values of the field at these sensor locations. That's very easy to do in Ferrite. But it gets harder if you want to do, for example, this operation, that just like H, C, H. So this covariance matrix has to be reduced down to sensor space. There might be a simpler solution to this. I found it really difficult. So I just assembled it with Ferrite. This means I checked all the sensor points in my domain. I checked in which cell they live, basically. So I had a cell ID and go to each cell, put some indicator flag if my point is in this cell. Then I put a little element assemble routine, and I basically check the reference coordinates of the cell, look up the value of my field, my dot range for this cell and point, then assemble a single vector for each sensor. And in the end, I put all these vectors together to form this big matrix. So it's a bit weird, I think, and I think there might be an easier choice. Maybe some of you has an idea and we can discuss later. So let's jump to examples. I think I'm running out of time. Is that right? Yeah, so I skip this first example and go straight for colorful pictures. So we have this problem here. So the well-known shearing benchmark. So we have a clamp on the bottom and we pull this to the right on the top. And what we expect is a 45-degree angle crack to occur. So what we do is we measure displacement only. I think there are quite a few of sensors here around this crack where I expect it to be. But yeah, we only measure this displacement field. And now we want to update a, that's didn't work. Now we want to update this phase field solution on data. And yeah, so we can see a phase field growing over time. So on the bottom there's time, there's the ground truth, and we make some error. And the time sets with a red dot, we are conditioning on this data. And you can see this error is going down the more updates you make. So these are very simple linear algebra rules we're applying, and it works quite well. So you can actually see, if you look closely, that also the path of the crack changes. So that's a very simple example. There were some very tricky parts when implementing this. It took us a lot of time to get this right, but I don't want to go into detail about this today. So in summary, we've seen stochastic phase field fracture of prior. We could do a Bayesian update on sparse noisy data, and this leads to hysteria, which is increasing with the data much better than the prior is. Works fine for 2D quasi-static benchmarks, and the work in progress on this is that I adapted this to dynamic phase field fracture, which is a bit more interesting, and use not only random initial damage, but complete correlated random fields for the material parameters. And I used a cool package called Gaussian microfriendly.jl for this, which saved me days of time, and it's implemented with Ferrite as a base. So that was really cool and helpful. And also we're using now normalized flows to build stochastic surrogates given this data we collected there. So thanks, that's it. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. We have a couple of minutes for questions, so field is open for questions. Maybe I'm going to start if nobody else wants to start. You said this works really well in 2D now. Have you tried running it in 3D? Is there anything inherently that keeps you from trying to run it in 3D?
So I haven't tried yet. And the main reason is the stat itself because you end up with really, really big covariance matrices. If you have 1,000 degrees of freedom, that's easy because you have 1,000 times 1,000 size matrix. But going to 3D needs you to have a very, very small discretization for your phase field. This ends up with a lot of degrees of freedom. So limiting factor here is RAM actually. So memory. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, can you tell me a bit more why the covariance so large? Is like you build a covariance for the all of the degrees.
Yes, exactly.
And you use a Gaussian somehow to approximate.
So it's approximated as a multivariate Gaussian in the end. So it's approximation. It's actually not a Gaussian, but to make some error. But this enables you to use all this full linear algebra for Gaussians. So actually, this normalizing flows we're working on right now. It's basically the extension from going Gaussian to non-Gaussian. So you can do other things, but you need to use machine learning for this.